Thanks for joining us on this special edition of Cooking with Styles. Have I got some great side dishes with a little twist on them. We're going to start with a sweet potato au gratin. That's something that you usually don't see. We'll follow that up with some Parmesan crusted silky mashed potatoes. Then we'll do chili rubbed carrots with a brown butter honey, fried Brussels sprouts with a chorizo and vinaigrette topping, and finishing it all off with a croissant bread pudding for dessert and or breakfast. Let's get cooking with Styles, holiday style. When you're making the sweet potato au gratin potatoes, the key to it is slicing the potatoes thin. If you've got a knife, it's a lot of work, but if you have a mandolin like this, it's a lot easier. Just make sure you use the guard, because I'm telling you what, those things are sharp. So putting this all together, you want to make sure that it's nice and dry. I've gone ahead and pre-buttered my casserole dish, and it couldn't be simpler putting this together. We're going to put 2 tablespoons of kosher salt. I'm using a tablespoon, but we're using teaspoons. I can measure that out that way. And then we're going to put a little bit of pepper in here, and we're going to go with a ½ teaspoon of black pepper over the top. And so to make the au gratin, we have to have, of course, cheese. So I've got some cheddar cheese here to go with the orange of the sweet potatoes there. And then we're going to throw in a little bit of garlic, a little bit, or in this case a lot, about 4 cloves. And then we're going to add our heavy cream. We've got about 2 cups of heavy cream here. And we're going to put that in, and then we're going to give it a little stir. And once we do that, we'll get everything coated nice and well and get the cheese all mixed in and around. Now you could just throw this in just like this, okay, and it would work, okay? But we're doing this for the holidays. We want it to be a little special, a little something pretty when it comes out on the table. So I'm going to show you a technique that I use that works for me and looks really good. So we're going to reach in here, and we're going to grab a stack of the potatoes, and I'm going to hold them like a deck of cards, and then I'm going to put them in here, and I'm going to tilt them so they're on edge like that. You see what I'm saying? And then we just keep doing that. Now obviously this is very messy, but you just stack them up like this, and we'll do this up and down, and then we'll put all the great ingredients in here and get it in the oven. Give me a few minutes to do this. All right, we're wrapping it up here, and now the trick is to pick the exact correct amount of sweet potatoes so you don't have any left over, but that is absolutely impossible. Now you want to make sure you get all these great ingredients in on top of your sweet potatoes, the cheese and the cream, and we'll put that all in, kind of spreading it around because that cheese sank to the bottom. And make sure you use a rubber spatula to get that all in there. And now we're going to put Parmesan cheese on this, but a little bit later. Save these and make another little separate bowl. We're going to take our foil, put it over the top. I've got my oven preheated. We'll head on over there and get this in the oven. So I've got the oven set at 375. I'm going to put this on the top rack. We'll remove the foil in about 45 minutes. Now I've got a little extra time, so I've got a treat for you here. We've got some shallots that I've peeled. I'm going to be braising these lightly in the oven. We're going to first caramelize them on the stove top. I've got about 2 or 3 tablespoons of olive oil. That's about a ½ a teaspoon to 3/4 a teaspoon of kosher salt, a little black pepper. We're going to throw some sprigs of thyme in there, and we're going to caramelize these so they've got a nice little golden brownness to them. You can see what I've got going there already. So these are going to be sauteing up. Make sure you get this thyme down in there because you want the essence of that thyme to be released in here. And then once we get a nice caramelization on top of the shallots here, we're going to take this beautiful chicken stock that I made. We're going to use that to put over the top, and we'll braise these for about 25 to 30 minutes. I've got my potatoes on the stove top here. I want you to make sure when you cook your potatoes, you start them in cold water and then bring them up to a boil. And once they start boiling, reduce them to a slow simmer, and then that's when you get that silky creaminess of the potatoes. Take one last look at these shallots. So once these are caramelized, we'll get them in the oven in a few minutes. Coming up though, we've got the fried Brussels sprouts with chorizo and a sherry vinaigrette, and we're going to make those creamy, silky mashed potatoes with a Parmesan crust. So when we left, we were trying to get these shallots caramelized. You can see what I'm talking about. Those look really nice. I'm going to just take my chicken stock, and you can use store-bought, but we're going to put in about 1.5 cups of that chicken stock. I'm using the chicken stock I made. We're going to put it right next to those sweet scallop potatoes in the oven. We'll keep an eye on those. They're going to go in there for about, I'd say, 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes. All right, let's get these Brussels sprouts going. I've got some olive oil here. I'm going to put that in. And what I want you to do is split your Brussels sprouts. You see the Brussels sprouts that we've got right here? We're using the smaller ones. So I've got my pan on a medium-high heat. I'm just going to swirl this around. And again, what we're going to try to do here is caramelize this a little bit. And so this is going to take a few minutes to do that. We want to season it because there's a lot of vegetables here. There's going to be a solid teaspoon of kosher salt in this, and we'll toss these so they're nice and caramelized on the outside. While those are going, I want you to do something else for your mashed potatoes. I know that looks like a lot of butter, but we're going to be making a lot of mashed potatoes. We've got our cream, butter, and we're going to put in a couple sprigs of thyme and let that steep in that hot milk, and then that'll be what we mix with the potatoes. All right, these are nice and caramelized. Let's get that chorizo on there. And all we're doing here is just trying to coat these Brussels sprouts with that chorizo, and then we'll get them on the plate with that little vinaigrette. Okay, let's head on over. Let's get these in the plate here and serve them up steaming hot. I mean, look at those Brussels sprouts. I'm telling you, that looks absolutely gorgeous with that chorizo. And one of the things you might have noticed in this recipe, I haven't put any pepper in. That's because of the chorizo. Okay, now for the vinaigrette. Super simple, shallots, garlic, a little bit of sherry vinaigrette, Dijon mustard, sugar and salt, olive oil. Put that in, give it a nice whisk. I'm making a little extra for maybe a salad tomorrow or something like that. There you go. Take it like so, bring it out here, give that a little white. Drizzle that over the top, and the sweetness of that sherry vinegar and the sugar in the dressing, that is going to set this off. Talk about something a little different there. Braised, make that fried Brussels sprouts, crispy Brussels sprouts with a sherry vinaigrette on top. Coming up next, we'll do those beautiful silky mashed potatoes with a Parmesan crust. So before we get these mashed potatoes going, let's put the finishing touch on our au gratin sweet potatoes with a little Parmesan cheese on top. We'll get this back in the oven. These have been in the oven for about 45 minutes, and we'll put those back on top. Also, while we're here, let's just give these beautiful shallots a little stir to make sure they're nice and coated. All right, let's drain off our potatoes. And what I like to do is I like to let them sit for just, like 3 or 4 minutes to make sure all the water's off of them before I rice them. Now the trick to making these potatoes silky is not mashing them, but instead putting them through a ricer. And you want to put them in the ricer while they're still warm. What that does is 2 things. One is it crushes them completely and makes them nice and smooth. And 2, by not whipping them, it doesn't stretch the gluten. So I'm going to do these, and then we'll show you how to put the rest of this together. All right, that's the last of it there. And now, if you don't have a potato ricer, you can make it by mashing them. However, they won't be quite as silky. Now we're going to add our cream in, our cream, half and half, and butter. But don't put it all in, okay? Because once you get it in and it's all, really wet, then you can't take it out. And you see how fast that starts to get creamy? And so we're going to fold this in. Another thing we haven't done with this is we haven't put any salt in. That's because the Yukon potatoes have a wonderful flavor to them, and we salted the water. Okay, this is ready to get in our dish here, our baking dish, and we'll pop this in the oven. And what I want you to do when this goes in, I don't want it to be perfect. I want it to be kind of have texture to it, because that texture will pick up the cheese, and that in the oven under the broiler is going to make it even that much crispier. So we'll just take that and kind of spread it around and let those little peaks and valleys be there. And then we'll just sprinkle our Parmesan cheese on top, put this under the broiler, and you'll have crusty, silky mashed potatoes. I've got the broiler on, and now it's important that you really keep an eye on this. This will only take about 45 seconds to a minute. Okay, it's been about a minute. There you go. Look at those. How nice do those look? We'll grab the shallots and go plate this all up. All right, let's get these served up while they're nice and hot. Look at those Parmesan crusted silky mashed potatoes. And we're going to just take our shallots and put them right into a serving bowl. All that nice au jus that's there with that. And then I'm going to take just a little bit of fresh thyme and sprinkle that over the top. And the fresh thyme, because it's hitting that hot surface, will really open up the flavor as well. So there's your braised, beautiful shallots. I'm telling you, these are spectacular. And wow, wait till you dig into these scrumptious, silky mashed potatoes with a Parmesan crust. Now coming up, we're going to take heirloom carrots and we're going to turn them into something really special and unique. I guarantee you've never had that. And just about the same time, those sweet potato au gratins will be coming out of the oven. So it looks like we're just about done putting all our side dishes together. Carrots, a staple of any holiday meal, but I'm going to change it up just a little bit. First off, we're going to go with these heirloom tomatoes, peel cut. Now you can buy them already pre-cut and peeled. However, I prefer to do it myself. You can see the beautiful colors here. We're going to season this with 3 things: kosher salt, cumin, and chili. And I mix it together first before I put it on the carrots because I don't want a big blob of chili on one. We're also going to put minced garlic, and I'm not going to be shy with my garlic. I'm going to put plenty of it in there. And then to that, I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. Drizzle that over the top. And again, we're going to go kind of heavy on this, about 3 to 4 tablespoons. If you prefer not, don't. And then we're just going to sprinkle this over the top. And the key here is really getting a good coating on everything. That way you don't have 1 carrot or 2 carrots that aren't fully coated. So we're going to give this a nice toss. And part of the thing the olive oil does is not only does it add flavor, but it helps conduct heat. So by making sure everything's well coated and that chili and cumin and salt is over all the vegetables in here, i.e. the carrots, because we've got yellow, purple, white, and orange carrots. Now you could do this just with orange regular carrots, but because it's the holidays, we're going to really make it special. Get this into the pan and make sure you get out as much of that goodness as you can onto your carrots, and then spread them out best you can so they're well spread, so they're not, all bunched up in one area. And then this way, it'll allow everything to kind of crisp up just a little bit. And we're ready to pop these in the oven. I've got it preheated. Let's head on over there. I've got that oven preheated. It's just in time because we're going to pull out those sweet potato au gratins. Look at these. Oh man, that is a home run. Nice and toasty on top. Now I want to point something out on these carrots. You see how I've sliced them on an angle? That's so that these little edges will get crispy and a little bit of char. And I'm going to put this on the top shelf, at least for my oven. This is the hottest spot. While that's going, let's get the brown butter and toast these pepitas, or in other words, pumpkin seeds. So I've got my cast iron. I'm going to go right here and I'm just going to put these in. I'm working off of a medium heat because I don't want to burn things. I just want to toast them. And this is going to take a little bit of time. Make sure you get them all in there. And now for the brown butter, this is the one you really have to pay attention to. We're going to do this slow and low, and it's going to take about 3 or 4 minutes for this butter to turn brown. We've done this before in a couple things, but I'm going to show you one more time. So let me get this butter melted, and then we'll show you as it turns light brown and then dark brown. All right, we're just now starting to turn brown. Come and take a look at this. You see this nice brown? Okay, we're right where we want to be. So we're going to shut the heat off on the butter, okay? But I'm going to keep an eye on my pepitas. And you can see how nice those are turning. We're getting a nice little toast on those. And don't worry about a little butter getting on there. And that's also the oil coming out of the pumpkin seeds. Now let's add our honey over here. And we're just going to take the honey and we're going to put in about a quarter of a cup-ish. You hear those guys popping over there? And we're going to mix this in. Let's get this sauce off to the side and check on these pumpkin seeds. They look pretty good, nice and toasted. A perfect time now to toss these carrots so everything's cooking nice and evenly. When we come back, we'll pull these out of the oven and make a beautiful croissant bread pudding. All right, we've got dinner pretty much squared away, but now it's time for dessert. Now, I got a twist on bread pudding. We're gonna use croissants and we're gonna make our own caramel sauce. However, we're gonna make this a little bit more custardy, so we're gonna use whole egg yolks in this. And if you don't know how to do it, it's really quite simple. Give the egg a good crack, split it in half, and make sure you put the egg whites in a separate bowl. Give it a little shake, and in you go. So that's how we're gonna make our custardy bread pudding here. To this, I'm going to add sugar, and if you don't want a whole cup, you don't have to use it. I've got nutmeg and cinnamon, and then instead of raisins, we're using craisins. In other words, cranberries that have been dried to become raisins. And then I'm going to put half and half, not milk. We're going to be using a richer form here. And we're just going to give this a good little mix here. And you really want to make sure it's incorporated very well, okay? So that's why I'm using this whisk, because that helps me do it much quicker. And we get it all nice and mixed up really, really well. All right, to that, I'm going to add a good pinch of salt and then a teaspoon of vanilla. And use real vanilla. Don't use the imitation type. It really does make a difference. Again, a nice whisk, get that all incorporated. And for your croissants, I want you to use day-olds, at least, all right? And I've got 6 here that I've torn apart and let them dry out. So what you do there is you get that in there, and the key to this, though, is letting it soak. So we're gonna mix this in and let it soak for at least a half hour before we transfer it. But here's the little twist to this that makes these, this croissant bread pudding all that much better. We'll let those soak. I'm gonna set them off to the side here. Check this out. I've already got a batch made, all right? But to that, this is for tomorrow morning when you get up. You put some sausage in it. And now you have a breakfast croissant bread pudding, and you serve that up with some maple syrup. And you can see how that's much more soaked in. So let me show you what we'll do with that. We'll take this. We've got our Pyrex pan already buttered up, and we're just going to put that right in like that, okay? And we'll spread that around. This one's been soaking. We'll give it a little shake, and now that's ready to go in the oven. The carrots should be ready. Let's go pull them from the oven. All right, let's get these carrots out of the oven. Those are done. Our bread pudding has been resting for about 30 minutes. We'll get these in the oven. I've turned the heat down too because the oven was at 400. This is at 350. While that's going, let's get our caramel sauce. And it's really this simple. A half stick of butter, some brown sugar, and then we're going to put a little bit of cream in here. We're using heavy cream. We're going to melt this down, bring it to a boil. This is going to take about 5 minutes, and then we'll have caramel sauce. Now this is when all the magic happens. We're going to bring everything together. Our chili roasted carrots, which actually are nice and crispy, and I think will be quite enjoyable. I've got my sauce, my honey brown butter sauce, and I'm going to drizzle that over the top. And this is, I'm gonna go ahead and toss it in a bowl first because I don't want it on my plate making things, everything kind of messy. And this will put a nice coating over that, okay? Wow, that chili and honey, it really smells good. And I'm just gonna take a nice serving plate and make sure that we don't let it spill out over the edge. Look at how beautiful that sauce is over the top. This is totally something different than what you would normally have with your carrots. And then we'll just take our toasted pumpkin seeds, or in this case, papitas. We'll put those on top, and there you go. How about that? Something totally different for your carrots on your holiday special. So this is a great way to go. The carrots are ready. My bread pudding is in the oven. Let's go check on that caramel sauce, which, by the way, you got to make sure you don't let that overcook. I'm going to head back over to the stovetop. So we let this caramel sauce simmer for about 5 minutes on a low heat. Now we're going to put the finishing touches in it. We're going to put about a teaspoon of vanilla in there, and I like to put my salt in at the end, a pinch, because you remember we were cooking with unsalted butter. Let's pull our bread pudding, and man, oh man, don't those look good. Which one? Let's take this one on the left and head over and plate it up. Normally I'd let this bread pudding rest just a little bit, but for television we're going to put a little plate together here. Let's take a nice little scoop of this and put it on our plate like so, and then take a good dip in our sauce and put it over the top. I like a little bit more, so one more for me, and then around the edge like they do in the restaurants. See how hard that really is? All right, man, take a look at all this stuff we put together here for you. Of course, this croissant bread pudding is off the hook. I've got here for you, so traditional recipes, but little twists. Brussels sprouts with the chorizo and sherry vinaigrette. We've got au gratin sweet potatoes instead of au gratin potatoes. One of my favorites, braised shallots. These creamy mashed potatoes, once you serve them, people are going to die for them with that thyme and milk and butter. And then, of course, the roasted carrots with the chili and the honey brown butter over the top. This is a great way to celebrate your holiday season. If you'd like all these recipes, they'll be part of the half-hour special we're doing here on CBS 8. And if you'd like to rewind this, go to our streaming channel, CBS 8 Plus, to see all these over and over again, because I know you're going to want to see them over and over again. And I want to say a special thanks to producer, photojournalist John Steinbach. Without him, I'd be lost in the kitchen, I got to tell you. But it's been a lot of fun sharing these recipes. Happy holidays and all the best to you in the new year.